Hi, I'm Antonia Whitford, and I'm in my 30s, living in Houston, Texas. And today I'm going to tell you how I ended up evicting my own parents from the house I bought for them after catching them trying to steal the only place in this world that actually felt like mine. Before I begin, please like, share, and subscribe if you want to hear more stories like mine. Because trust me, this isn't just about property or money, it's about what happens when you finally stop letting your family treat you like an endless ATM. I run my own digital consulting firm here in Houston. We help startups and mid-sized companies build their online presence and marketing strategies. It started as a side hustle in my tiny one-bedroom apartment, working late nights after my corporate job. Then the clients kept coming, and the money followed. These days, the work pays well, really well. Over the years, I managed to save enough to do something I'd always dreamed of: take care of my parents. I grew up hearing that they sacrificed everything for me, that they never had the opportunities I had. So 8 years ago, when I signed the paperwork and bought a house for them in the Woodlands, handing them the keys felt like paying off some invisible emotional debt. They were over the moon. They called it their house from day one. I didn't correct them. I told myself, it's fine, they're my parents, as long as they're happy. I didn't just stop there. I also helped my younger sister, Natalie. She lives with her husband, Andrew, and their 2 kids in a rental townhouse over in Katy. For nearly 5 years now, I've been paying for that townhouse every single month. The rent comes out of my account like another utility bill. Natalie works as an office manager at a dental clinic, but her salary barely covers groceries and school supplies, let alone rent in a decent neighborhood. So once again, I stepped in. People on the outside would probably look at my life and say, I'm a good daughter, a generous sister. What they don't see is how that kind of generosity slowly turns into expectation, then obligation, then entitlement. A few years back, I did one more thing for myself. I bought a lake house up near Lake Conroe, about an hour and a half from downtown Houston. I don't go there as often as I'd like. Work keeps me slammed, but that house became my sanctuary. When the city heat and traffic get too much, I pack a bag, grab my laptop, and spend a long weekend there. The house itself isn't huge or flashy. It's modest but charming. Cedar shingle siding, a wraparound porch, and this incredible view of the water that looks like it was pulled from a postcard. In the early mornings, mist hangs over the lake, and everything is quiet enough that I can hear my own thoughts again. I gave my parents spare keys, just in case a pipe burst in winter, or a storm damaged the roof, or something unexpected happened while I was in Houston. As far as I knew, they never used those keys. The lake house was my escape, my one place untouched by my family's constant needs. At least that's what I thought. Last Wednesday afternoon, I was in the office working on a campaign pitch for a tech startup. My screen was full of ads, copy variations, numbers, just another intense day. My phone lit up on the desk. Greg, my neighbor from the lake house. We weren't close friends. We mostly exchanged small talk at the marina or the local grocery store. So when I saw his name on my phone in the middle of the workday, my stomach did this tiny, uneasy flip. I picked up, "Hey Greg, everything okay?" His voice was cautious, almost apologetic. "Hey, Antonia, I wanted to check something with you." "Sure," I said, my fingers pausing over the keyboard. "What's going on? Did a tree fall on the property or something?" There was a brief pause on the line. "Well, are you selling your place or doing major renovations there?" My heart dipped, just a little. "What are you talking about?" I forced a laugh. "I didn't sell anything, and I'm not renovating. Why would you think that?" "Because," he said slowly, "there are people at your property right now, construction workers, big truck, equipment. It looks like serious work. They've been here all morning." For a second, I just stared at the gray cursor blinking on my screen. "Are you sure you're looking at my house?" I finally asked. "The cedar siding, the wraparound porch?" "Positive," he said. "I'm looking at it from my dock. If you want, I can send you a photo." "Please," I said, "send it." The moment the call ended, I just sat there, phone in hand, pulse thudding in my ears. Some part of my brain tried to explain it away. Maybe it's the wrong house. Maybe there's some misunderstanding. Maybe... My phone buzzed. Greg had sent the picture. I opened it, and I swear it felt like someone punched straight through my chest. There was my house, my porch, my view. There was also a massive truck parked in the driveway with Brazos Valley Construction written on the side. But that wasn't the worst part. Standing near the front steps, talking to the workers, and pointing at different parts of my house were people I recognized immediately. My parents, my sister Natalie, and her husband Andrew. I zoomed in on the photo like maybe I'd see something that would make this make sense. Maybe they were just checking a broken gutter. Maybe they were getting an estimate for something for me. Maybe. No. They were smiling, gesturing, planning. I remembered signing the purchase documents for that lake house 3 years ago, paying for it entirely with my own money, decorating it slowly with things I loved, breathing differently there, like for once I wasn't responsible for everyone else. And now there were construction crews tearing it apart. I didn't call my parents. I didn't text Natalie. I didn't send a single message. I didn't want this conversation over the phone. I stood up, told my assistant I had to leave for the day, grabbed my keys and my bag, and headed straight for the parking garage. The entire drive up Highway 59 felt like my brain was on a loop. Maybe it's a misunderstanding. Maybe they're fixing something. Maybe they thought they were helping me. But underneath the desperate rationalizing, there was another voice. They have a house you pay for. Natalie has a townhouse you pay for. What else could they possibly want? Traffic blurred past. My nails dug crescents into the steering wheel. When I pulled up to the lake house, the construction truck was still in the driveway. Workers were carrying lumber and drywall inside like they owned the place. My parents noticed my car immediately and walked toward me. My mother was smiling, actually smiling. My father looked completely calm, like I'd just arrived for a family barbecue. They acted like everything was normal. I got out of the car, every muscle in my body tight. "What is all this?" I asked, my voice already shaking. "What's going on here?" My mother answered first, still wearing that infuriatingly bright smile. "Oh, sweetheart, we decided to do some renovations on the house," she said, like she was announcing a surprise party. "We're expanding it quite a bit. After everything is finished, Natalie and Andrew and the kids will move in here permanently." I stared at her, then at my father, waiting for him to jump in and say this was some kind of joke. He didn't. Instead, he nodded. "Yes. This lake house is too small for a family with children, so we're making it bigger. We're adding a whole new wing, 2 bedrooms, and expanding the kitchen and living room. The kids need space to grow." They sounded so casual, so reasonable, like they were discussing paint colors instead of my property. I didn't answer them. I walked right past, up the porch steps, into the house that was supposed to be my refuge. Inside, it looked like a war zone. Workers had already torn down the wall between the living room and the guest bedroom. There was drywall dust everywhere, on my sofa, my coffee table, the shelves where I kept books and photos. Wood framing jutted out where solid walls had been. The air smelled like sawdust and sweat and something breaking that you can't ever fully put back together. I turned around slowly, my parents following me inside. "Have you completely lost your minds?" I managed. "This is my house. My property. You had no right to do any of this without even asking me." My father crossed his arms, his jaw tightening. "We don't need to ask your permission," he said. "We're one family. You gave us spare keys yourself. That means you trust us. We're using this place for a better purpose now." Before I could respond, Natalie walked in with Andrew behind her. She looked annoyed, like I was the one interrupting. "Antonia, stop being so dramatic," she snapped. "You already have that huge loft in Midtown. Plus, you own a successful business and make excellent money. Meanwhile, I'm forced to raise my kids in a cramped rental townhouse. You have multiple properties just sitting here. This is the only fair solution." I looked at all of them, my parents, my sister, her husband, the people I had helped for years, without asking for anything back. The people I thought I was taking care of. And they were standing in the middle of my destroyed living room, defending their right to steal from me. Rage rose in my chest like lava. I wanted to scream, to smash something, to shake them until they understood. Instead, I took a breath, turned around, and walked out. I heard them calling my name, but I didn't stop. I walked down the porch steps, across the yard, got into my car, and drove away. In my rearview mirror, I could see them standing on the porch, tiny and distant. They probably thought I'd cool off, that in a few days we'd all sit down and I'd come to my senses. They had no idea. I didn't drive back home to Houston. Not yet. I pulled into a Starbucks parking lot, opened my laptop, and typed Brazos Valley Construction into the search bar, the name I'd seen on the truck outside my house. I found their website and their office address in Conroe. It wasn't far. I grabbed my tablet from my bag, the one where I kept digital copies of all my important documents, including the property deed for the lake house, started the car again, and pulled out of the lot. I had a feeling the worst part of this wasn't the dust or the broken walls. The real damage, the real betrayal, was waiting for me in a filing cabinet with my name on it. The Brazos Valley Construction Office was in one of those small strip malls near the highway, nail salon on one end, a vape shop on the other, and a sun-faded sign over their door. It didn't look like the place where my entire relationship with my family was about to catch fire. Inside, the reception area smelled like coffee and dust. A young woman sat behind the desk, scrolling through something on her computer. She glanced up as I walked in, tablet tucked under my arm. "Hi, can I help you?" "Yes," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. "My name is Antonia Whitford. Your company is currently doing construction at my lake house near Lake Conroe. I need to speak to whoever is in charge. It's urgent." Her brows knit together. Do you have an appointment?" "No," I said. "But your crew is at my property doing work I did not authorize. So either I speak to someone now, or I'll go to a lawyer and a judge first. Your choice." She stared at me for a second, then picked up the phone and dialed an extension. "Mr. Whitfield, there is a client here about the Lake Conroe project. She says it's urgent." "Yes, I'll send her in." She hung up and gave me a tentative nod. "You can go back. Second door on the left." I walked down the hallway, my heels thudding against the worn linoleum floor. My heart was pounding so loudly that for a moment I could barely hear anything else. The office door was open. Inside sat a heavy-set man in his 50s with a weathered face and work-roughened hands. A stack of folders was piled on his desk, alongside a half-empty mug and a measuring tape. He stood up. "Miss Whitford, I'm Tommy Whitfield." I shook his hand and sat down opposite him. There was no point in small talk. "I'm the legal owner of the property where your workers are currently doing construction," I said, pulling my tablet from my bag and tapping to open the deed. "This house." I turned the screen so he could see. "I did not hire your company. I did not authorize any renovations whatsoever. So I need to know exactly who did, and on what basis you started work." Tommy's eyes flicked from the screen to my face, then back again. A crease formed between his brows. "Give me just a moment," he said, slowly opening one of the drawers on his desk. He pulled out a manila folder, flipped through it, and then stopped. "Is this your property?" he asked, sliding a sheet of paper toward me. As soon as I looked at it, my stomach turned. The address was mine. The lot number was mine. The description of the structure was mine. Attached was a contract for renovation work, signed by Brazos Valley Construction on one side. On the other side was what was supposed to be my signature, except it wasn't. My name was there, Antonia Whitford, but the handwriting was wrong. The pressure was off. The way the letters connected was sloppy, like someone had copied it from memory or from an old document without really understanding how my hand moved. My actual signature has a very distinctive loop in the W of Whitford. It's automatic by now, a muscle memory I don't even think about. On that paper, the loop was missing. I felt my hands start to tremble. "An older couple came in about 3 weeks ago," Tommy said carefully. "They said they were your parents. They presented what they claimed was a power of attorney from you, giving them authority to handle renovations at the property. They told us you wanted the house expanded for family use." My throat went dry. "Do you have copies of those documents?" "Yes," he said immediately. "Of course." He opened the folder further, pulled out another set of papers, and set them in front of me. "Here's the supposed power of attorney and the ID copies they provided." I scanned the first page. My name, my address, legal language. Then, at the bottom, that same pretend version of my signature, familiar and wrong at the same time. "Mr. Whitfield," I said quietly, "these people lied to you. I never signed this. This signature is forged." He frowned. "You're certain?" I looked him dead in the eye. "I sign contracts for a living. I've signed legal paperwork for years. I know my own signature. This isn't it." I tapped my tablet and pulled up a PDF of my original deed, the closing paperwork, documents where my real signature appeared over and over. I laid it next to this contract. "Look at the W here," I said, "and here. And then look at the W on your document. Whoever did this tried to copy it, but didn't know how my hand actually moves." Tommy compared them, his face growing paler by the second. I see the difference," he said slowly. "Ms. Whitford, I'm very sorry. We took their paperwork at face value. They seemed sincere. They said you were too busy with your business to come in person." "That part," I said bitterly, "they didn't lie about." I took a breath and straightened in my chair. "Here's what's going to happen. Your workers are going to stop all construction at my property immediately. You're going to pack up everything and leave the site. If they continue one more hour based on forged documents, I will hold your company legally responsible. I have no issue pursuing this in court if I have to." Tommy ran a hand over his face, then nodded. "I understand," he said softly. "I'll handle it right now." He picked up his phone, dialed a number, and turned slightly away. Yeah, it's Tommy. Stop all work at the Whitford property. Right now. No, I mean right now. Pull the crew, pack the equipment, leave the site. I'll explain when you get back. He hung up, then looked at me again. Ms. Whitford, I'm truly sorry. We'll cooperate with any investigation. You can take copies of all the paperwork we have. He made copies of every document related to my property and handed them over. I slid them into my folder with my tablet, feeling like I was stacking pieces of a bomb I hadn't chosen to build. On the drive back toward Houston, my phone rang. My father. I let it ring twice, considered ignoring it, then hit accept and put it on speaker. Yes? Why did the construction crew pack up and leave? He demanded without so much as a greeting. His voice was sharp, indignant. We were in the middle of important work. Because, I said, keeping my tone icy, it's my house, and I don't want any renovations there. I never authorized them. I never signed any documents, and now construction is over. There was a pause. I could almost feel him collecting his anger like a weapon. Antonia, what are you doing? He snapped. We already paid a substantial deposit. Do you have any idea how much money we've invested in this? Your mother and I are trying to create a better home for your sister's children, and you're sabotaging everything. You paid them, I said, gripping the steering wheel tighter, with forged documents. You forged my signature on legal paperwork. That's a serious crime, and now you're going to have very serious problems. You wouldn't dare do anything to your own family, he said, his voice dripping with contempt. We raised you better than this. After everything we've done for you, this is how you treat us. I stared at the highway ahead of me, the exit signs flashing past. Watch me, I said, and I hung up. My hands were still shaking, but it wasn't fear anymore. It was adrenaline and something else, something hard and steady that I hadn't let myself feel in years. Determination. I pulled off at the next exit, parked in a quiet lot, and scrolled through my contacts until I reached the name I needed. Patricia Reeves, my lawyer. The woman who had handled every contract and legal detail for my business for the last 6 years. She picked up on the second ring. Antonia, everything okay? No, I said. I need to see you. It's personal, and it's urgent. She didn't hesitate. I can fit you in this afternoon, 2 hours from now, at my office in the Galleria. I'll be there. 2 hours later, I sat across from her in her glass-walled office overlooking the city. The skyline glowed behind her like a reminder of everything I'd built on my own. I laid everything out on her desk. The photos from Greg, the deed to the lake house, the forged contracts from Brazos Valley Construction. Patricia flipped through the documents slowly, her expression tightening. When did you first find out about this? She asked. Earlier today, I said. Greg called me. I drove up there. The house is half torn apart. My parents and my sister are planning to move Natalie's family into the lake house permanently, without my permission. They lied to the construction company. They forged a power of attorney with my name on it. Patricia tapped the fake signature with her pen. This is document forgery, she said, and possibly fraud. Those are criminal offenses in Texas. You can absolutely sue them for damages and hold the construction company as a witness. You could also pursue criminal charges if you choose. A part of me winced at the words criminal charges and your parents in the same mental sentence. Another part of me was so numb it barely flinched. I want them to pay for everything they destroyed, I said quietly. Every single thing. All right, Patricia said. First, we need a full professional assessment of the damage at the lake house. I'll arrange for a property damage specialist to go out there tomorrow and document everything. Photos, structural impact, cost estimates. Once we have that, we can file. She picked up her phone, made a couple of calls, and scheduled the inspection while I sat there, staring at the fake curves of my stolen signature. By the time she hung up, the decision was already made in my mind. There was no going back to before. Patricia leaned back in her chair. Antonia, I need to ask you something, and I'm asking as your attorney and as someone who's known you a long time. Are you sure you want to move forward with legal action? This will create a permanent rift with your family. Things may never go back to normal. I thought of my parents standing in my destroyed living room, talking about fairness. I thought of Natalie rolling her eyes, calling me dramatic, demanding the house because I had too much. I thought of that fake signature, looping letters that weren't mine. No, I said softly. Things will never go back to normal, and that's exactly why I'm doing this. I paused, then reached into my bag for another folder I had brought almost on instinct, though I hadn't been fully sure I would use it. There's something else, I said. Another matter I need your help with. Patricia raised an eyebrow. Go on. I laid the second folder on her desk and opened it. Inside were the documents for the house in the Woodlands, the one my parents called theirs. This house, I said, has always been legally mine. I bought it 8 years ago with my money. My parents have lived there rent-free the entire time. They only pay utilities and basic maintenance. I pay the mortgage, the property taxes, the insurance, the HOA fees, everything. Patricia leafed through the deed, the tax records, the payment history. "And what do you want to do about it?" she asked. I looked her straight in the eye. "I want to evict them." Patricia didn't react right away. She kept her expression steady, but I could see the calculations happening behind her eyes, the legal angles, the risks, the fallout. When she finally spoke, her voice was calm, measured. "All right," she said. "Let me review these documents thoroughly." She read through every page. The deed with my name printed in bold letters, the tax records showing I'd paid every cent for 8 years, the insurance bills, the homeowners association fees, the mortgage statements, all drafted from my account. Not a single payment, not $1 had ever come from my parents. After a long moment, she closed the folder softly. "Everything is in order. You are the sole legal owner. They have no lease agreement, no rental contract, nothing that protects them. Legally speaking, they live there only because you allowed it. You can absolutely evict them." She paused, tapping her pen against the desk lightly. "But Antonia, this is a nuclear option. Once you do this, there's no coming back." Her words hung in the air like smoke. But the truth was, something inside me had already snapped long before I stepped into her office. This wasn't a heat-of-the-moment reaction anymore. It was clarity. Cold, crystalline, painful clarity. "I'm certain," I said. "I want them out, and I want to do this the right way." Patricia nodded once. "Okay, give me about 45 minutes." While she typed up the eviction notice, formally and thoroughly, I stared out the window at the city skyline. The sun had begun to set, streaking the glass towers with gold. Houston always looked the most beautiful at the end of the day, when the light softened and everything felt momentarily still. I thought about the last 8 years, all the times I paid bills quietly, thinking it was love. All the times I told myself I didn't mind, because they were my parents. All the times I let Natalie cry about money while I pulled out my wallet, again and again. All the tiny boundary violations I ignored, because I didn't want conflict. I used to believe that when you give to family, you give without keeping score. Turns out I was the only one playing by that rule. Patricia printed the eviction notice, freshly signed and stamped, then handed it to me in a protective sleeve. "According to Texas law," she explained, "they have 30 days to vacate. Delivering this notice is the first official step. After that, if they refuse to leave, we file a lawsuit for eviction. But given the forged documents and the construction situation, I doubt they'll want the courts involved." I slipped the notice into my folder. "Thank you," I said quietly. She gave me a long look. "Antonia, are you okay?" Something in my chest loosened, just a little. "I think," I said, "for the first time in years, I'm starting to be." I left her office and drove home. I didn't play music. I didn't call anyone. I just let the silence settle around me like a blanket. But it didn't take long for the storm to arrive. That evening, around 9 p.m., my phone rang. "Mom." Her voice was icy, sharp enough to cut. "Your father and I are extremely disappointed in you," she said. "We need to have a serious talk about your behavior." I closed my eyes, inhaling through my nose. "Okay," I said. "When?" "Tomorrow evening, at our house." She paused, emphasizing the word our like a threat. "There will be a family meeting. Your father, your sister, Andrew, and us. You need to be here, and you need to come prepared to apologize." My jaw tightened. "All right." "And Antonia," she added, cold and crisp, "you need to behave properly and reasonably tomorrow. This drama needs to end." I let a beat of silence stretch. "Don't worry," I said quietly. "I will behave exactly as the situation requires." Then I hung up. I sat there for a moment, staring at my reflection in the darkened window. For years, they'd assumed I would always fold, always compromise, always carry whatever burden they handed me. They had absolutely no idea what was coming. I spent the rest of the evening organizing everything. The forged documents, the photos, the damage assessment, the eviction notice. I made 3 copies of everything and placed them neatly in labeled sections of my folder. Then I rehearsed what I would say, slowly, calmly, with no room for misinterpretation. Tomorrow wasn't going to be a discussion. It was going to be a reckoning. The next evening, I drove to the Woodlands, to my house where my parents lived. The driveway lights were on. The windows glowed warmly. It looked so familiar, yet suddenly foreign, like a place I used to know but had somehow outgrown without realizing it. I parked, grabbed the folder from the passenger seat, and took a deep breath before walking to the front door. When I stepped inside, everyone was already assembled. My mother and father sat rigidly on the large sectional sofa. Natalie and Andrew were next to them, arms crossed, faces tight with practiced indignation. Across from them, pulled out and positioned like a defendant's chair in a courtroom, was a single armchair. It was very intentional. They wanted me to feel outnumbered, outvoted, small. I sat down slowly, placing my folder on my lap. Not one of them said hello. No one asked how I was. No one offered me a seat or a glass of water. It was an ambush disguised as a family meeting. Perfect. My father started immediately, his tone severe, authoritative, the voice of a man used to being obeyed. Antonia, the entire family is extremely unhappy with your behavior. You embarrassed us in front of that construction company. You made outrageous accusations and threatened us with legal consequences over a simple family matter. This is unacceptable. Natalie leaned forward, her face flushed with indignation. Andrew and I had everything planned. We need that lake house. Our kids deserve better living conditions. You barely use it, and because of your tantrum, our move has been delayed indefinitely. You're being incredibly selfish, Antonia. You always have been. I looked at each of them calmly, one by one. My mother's cold stare, my father's anger simmering just beneath the surface, Natalie's righteousness, Andrew's silent to smug support of whatever benefited him. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel guilt. I felt clarity. Your move hasn't been postponed, I said softly. The room went still. It's been canceled, permanently. None of you will ever set foot in my lake house again. My mother gasped. My father's brows shot up. Natalie stood so abruptly she knocked her wine glass off the table. You can't do that, she yelled. We told the kids. I changed the locks yesterday morning, I said. You have no access whatsoever. Then I opened my folder. And that's not all. I placed a packet of papers on the coffee table, sliding them forward. You owe me $18,000, I said. This is the official damage assessment report for everything your unauthorized construction destroyed. If you refuse to pay, I will take you to court, and when I do, I'll present the forged documents. That's a felony in Texas. My mother began to cry, clutching her chest dramatically. My father stood up, face reddening. You wouldn't dare take us to court. If you do, we will disown you completely. You'll be dead to this family. I stood too, slowly meeting his eyes. That suits me perfectly, I said. Strangers won't be living in my house anyway. His expression faltered. He wasn't expecting that. What does that mean? He demanded. I reached into my folder one more time and pulled out the final document. The eviction notice. This house where we're sitting right now, I said, placing it gently beside the damage report, is legally mine. You have 30 days to move out. For a long moment, no one said anything. The only sound in the room was the faint hum of the air conditioning, steady, cold, indifferent. My father stared at the eviction notice as if he couldn't make sense of the words, like he had forgotten that houses come with owners, that property deeds aren't based on feelings, that generosity isn't the same as surrender. Finally, his voice cracked through the silence. This is ridiculous, he barked. You can't evict us. This is our home. We've lived here for 8 years. I took a slow breath. When I spoke, my voice was level, a controlled quiet that somehow felt louder than shouting. No, I said. It is my home. It always has been. I bought it with my money. I paid every bill. I covered every fee. You lived here rent-free for 8 years. My father shook his head as if trying to physically push the truth away. We're your parents, he snapped. We raised you. We took care of you when you were a child. You owe us. I cut him off gently but firmly. And I paid that debt 1,000 times over. I took care of you as adults for nearly a decade. I paid your housing, your fees, your emergencies, your lifestyle. But what you did at my lake house wasn't a mistake. It wasn't a misunderstanding. It was theft. My mother's voice trembled as she cried harder, clutching her chest like she was staging a collapse. How can you do this to us, Antonia? We're your parents. You're supposed to take care of us. You owe us everything we invested in you. Her words were meant to stab. Instead, they outlined a truth I had been refusing to see. They didn't want a daughter. They wanted a resource, a bank, a safety net, a guarantee that no matter what choices they made, I would always cover the consequences. Before I could respond, Natalie shot to her feet, her voice shrill and trembling with fury. You've completely lost your mind, she screamed. You're destroying this entire family over one stupid house. She stabbed a finger toward me. You never cared about us. You only care about your money and your stupid properties. You don't need that lake house. You barely even go there. Meanwhile, I'm struggling with 2 kids in a cramped rental, And you have the nerve to act like we did something wrong? Her voice cracked, but it wasn't sadness. It was entitlement. Years of it. She kept going. And now you're telling me that you're cutting off the rent payments for our townhouse? What are we supposed to do? Andrew's income isn't enough, and I can't magically double mine. You're throwing my kids out on the street. Her husband Andrew finally spoke, his face red with barely controlled anger. This is cruel, Antonia, he spat. Heartless. Who evicts their own parents and abandons their niece and nephew? You're acting like a monster. I looked at him, feeling a strange calm settle over me. I didn't abandon anyone, I said. I gave you every opportunity in the world. For years. I paid your rent so Natalie could save. You didn't save. I paid for emergencies that never ended. I paid for vacations, for weekend getaways, for impulsive choices. I bought you a car, Natalie, a new Buick, 4 months ago. Natalie's face drained of color. And now, I continued, I'm done. You can figure out your living situation like every other adult. You have 1 month before I stop paying. That's $1,500 a month, by the way, in case you forgot. Natalie's mouth opened and closed, speechless for the first time in years. Andrew grabbed her arm. We have children, he said, voice cracking with panic. Where are they supposed to go? You should have thought about your children, I said quietly, before you helped forge my signature and tried to steal my lake house. The room exploded. Everyone began talking at once, shouting, crying, pleading, accusing. My father said I was ungrateful. My mother screamed about neighbors and shame. Natalie hurled insults, words she'd clearly been holding for years. Andrew cursed under his breath, pacing like a caged animal. But through all of it, I felt nothing. Not numbness, not guilt, not hurt. Just certainty. I stood up. The room didn't quiet, but my movement pulled their eyes toward me. I gathered my folder, lifted it, and held it to my chest. I'm done, I said simply. 30 days. That's all. I walked toward the door as voices chased me. Ungrateful! Selfish! You'll regret this. You're dead to this family. What will the relatives think? You're abandoning your mother. You're ruining our lives. I didn't turn back. I stepped outside into the warm Texas evening, closed the door firmly behind me, and exhaled. It felt like the first breath of my own life. I walked to my car. Their shouts were still audible from the living room, muffled by walls, but unmistakable. I slid into the driver's seat, buckled in, and stared at the house, my house, where my parents had lived as though entitlement gave them ownership. I didn't owe them another second. I started the engine and drove away, feeling lighter with every mile. Over the next few days, my phone became a battlefield. Call after call, voicemail after voicemail, text after text. The messages shifted like tides. First wave, rage. You betrayed us. We will take everything from you. You'll regret crossing us. Second wave, manipulation. We're your parents. You can't do this. Think of the family. You're breaking your mother's heart. Third wave, begging. Please reconsider. We're old. We have nowhere else to go. Your sister is desperate. Help her. Fourth wave, rage again. You're sick. You're evil. We disown you. I blocked every number. Every single one. I didn't need their words poisoning the air around me anymore. I didn't need to explain myself. I didn't need to justify my boundaries. For the first time in years, I felt like I had control of my own life. Then, a week later, my cousin Amanda's name lit up my phone. I hesitated before answering, but she was one of the few relatives I trusted. Antonia, she said the moment I picked up, are you okay? I'm fine, I said. Why? She inhaled sharply. Because Natalie just posted something on Facebook, and people are going crazy over it. My stomach dropped. Of course she did. What did she say? I asked. You'd better read it yourself, Amanda sighed. Just brace yourself. I hung up with Amanda and opened Facebook. Sure enough, the first thing on my feed was a long, dramatic, emotionally manipulative post from Natalie, written in that trembling martyr tone she always used when she wanted people to think she was the victim of someone else's cruelty. It started with, I never wanted to make this public, but I'm desperate. That alone told me everything. Then it got worse. She wrote that I, her cold-hearted sister, was evicting our elderly parents, leaving her children homeless, and destroying our family because I'm too obsessed with money. She conveniently left out the forged signature, the illegal construction, the $18,000 in damages, the years of rent I paid, the house I bought for our parents. the car I purchased for them, the vacations I funded, the emergencies I covered, the ways I carried all of them financially for a decade. Instead, she wrote, "Please pray for my parents in this difficult time. I don't know how Antonia turned into someone so cruel." The post had over 400 comments. Most were from strangers or distant relatives I barely knew, people who had only ever heard one side of the story. People calling me monster, ungrateful child, gold digger, narcissist, heartless witch. People saying things like, "She doesn't deserve a family. How could she do this to her parents? God will punish her." My chest tightened, not from shame, not from fear, but from a sadness I couldn't quite name. They had gone public, they had gone vicious, they had gone for blood, but I wasn't going to let them control the narrative. Not anymore. I clicked into the comment box under Natalie's post and began typing. My hands were steady, my breathing was even. I wrote, "Since you decided to make our private family matter public, it's only fair that the full truth is also shared." Then I explained everything, clearly, calmly, factually, and that the lake house was legally mine, purchased with my own money. That my parents and Natalie forged my signature on a document to authorize renovations behind my back. That the construction caused $18,000 in documented damages. That my parents live in a house I bought for them, rent-free, for 8 years. That I paid rent for Natalie's townhouse for 5 years. That I paid for her vacations, emergencies, car repairs, and even a new Buick. Then I attached screenshots, the property deed in my name, the financial records showing my payments, the forged document from the construction company, the damage assessment report. And finally, I ended with, "Family is not a license to commit fraud. Kindness is not permission for exploitation. I will always help those who respect boundaries, but I will no longer finance people who abuse them." I hit post, and for a few seconds, everything was still. Then the reactions exploded. Hundreds of replies, some shocked, some outraged, but now directed at the right people. Aunt Marissa commented, "Your parents told everyone they bought that Woodlands house with their retirement money." Uncle Joseph added, "Natalie always said you never helped her financially. This is shocking." My cousin Leo wrote, "I can't believe they forged your signature. That's not family conflict. That's illegal." Others chimed in, "Wow, the entitlement is crazy. I never knew you supported them this much. This changes everything." The narrative flipped in less than an hour. Natalie tried responding at first. It was a mess of excuses and, "You don't understand the context," but every comment she made was immediately countered with the receipts I had provided. Within 2 hours, she deleted the entire post. But it was too late. Screenshots were already circulating in family group chats. People were calling and messaging each other. The truth had broken loose, and it wasn't going back in the cage. For the first time in this entire nightmare, I felt something like relief. Not vindication, but clarity. A silence followed. Not peace, no, but the kind of quiet that happens when a storm has finally spent itself. 6 months passed. 6 long, strange, unexpectedly peaceful months. I still ran my digital consulting firm. Business was better than ever. We'd signed 3 new clients and revenue was up. I went to the lake house on weekends. The grass had grown back. I'd hired a crew, a legitimate one, to repair the damage properly. They restored everything to perfection, even refinished the hardwood floors. The house looked like it had before, maybe even better. I no longer paid my parents' bills. I no longer paid Natalie's rent. I no longer answered their calls. After the eviction notice, my parents left the house on day 29. Not willingly, of course. They made sure everyone in the neighborhood saw their dramatic departure, but they left. Natalie and Andrew moved into a smaller place, more within their actual means. They resented me for it, but resentment wasn't my problem anymore. A few relatives tried to mediate, repeating the old tired lines. Family is everything. Family sticks together. You only get one mother, Antonia. You should forgive them. But I had learned something powerful. Family without respect isn't family. Love without boundaries isn't love. And sacrificing yourself for people who would burn your life down for convenience isn't noble. It's self-destruction. One quiet Sunday evening, I sat on the porch of my lake house, watching the last streaks of orange fade over the water. The air was warm, the kind of warm that settles into your skin and reminds you that not every ending is tragic. Some endings are necessary. Some endings are freedom. I wrapped my hands around a mug of tea and breathed in the quiet. And for the first time in my adult life, I felt truly, entirely safe.